Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing abrupt climate change. And this is a topic that is not for the weak. Thank you all for checking out the video, the interview I did with Dean yesterday. There were lots of different takes on it, lots of different comments about it. I just see it as, you know, another step, another brick in the wall of information that we, you know, are building about this, about how to deal with this. That's really all it is. I mean, it's not, you know, nothing about, you know, nothing about one interview with someone is going to probably change anybody's life, but it's, you know, hopefully helpful to some. And I think that it was. And it's helpful for me. It's helpful for me to do these videos. It's therapeutic. It's helpful for me to interact with y'all on the comment section, and for you guys to interact in the comment section. I think, you know, there's a good sense of camaraderie, generally a good sense of, you know, everyone sharing this predicament together. And that's pretty much all that we can do, given the reality of the news, given the reality of the situation that we are in. You know, I don't know that there's going to be any, you know, definitive answers, or one answer or set of answers that may, you know, help us to escape either the actual predicament itself, or escape, you know, what it is that we're going to have to, you know, the consequences of the predicament. You know, it is it's a Gordian knot of a problem that we are facing. And, you know, anything that we can do to help loosen that knot, even just a little bit, I think is helpful. But do what you got to do. What I got to do is read some articles today. But first, what I got to do is set my timer so that I don't ramble too long. You know, one thing that I find interesting, excuse me, is it's interesting, you know, why some people get this and why others don't. You know, why, I mean, it's clearly pretty obvious, you know, if you look at the information just for a little while, if you look at the evidence, you know, and from a couple of different angles, it's pretty obvious, it's pretty airtight that, you know, this is ongoing. And that, you know, we're not in a good place. And yet, you know, extremely intelligent people can either deny this information, or gloss over it, or distance themselves from it in order to not be affected by it. You know, I don't think that it solely has to do with intelligence or education or any of that. I mean, I don't think it has anything to do with that. But I am fascinated by what it is that takes, you know, that makes somebody, you know, grasp this information and be able to deal with it, or to handle it, or to look at it, or to understand it in a very deep and meaningful way. It is not easy for everyone. So, you know, be kind, be gentle, if you can, with others that are not ready to deal with this. So many great comments on the video yesterday. And one thing, Val had a couple of things to say. Valhalla said that maybe I should put a disclaimer at the front of my video saying that this is, you know, possibly traumatic information, and so proceed with caution. I thought that was good. But another thing he said was, give people a heads up. Ask people if they really want some terrible news before you give it to them. And that's I'd say that's a good way to proceed. Sometimes people get information, they just stumble right into it, and there's just no way around it. So be careful if you can, but you also, the truth is the truth. Things are what they are. And so, there's just no way around presenting the information as it is and having people have a negative reaction to it. And I've seen it, I've seen it a million times. I'm sure you all have too. Getting into some articles. So Tim sent, oh Jesus. I hate when I click on the wrong thing and sends me into browser hell. Tim is over in the UK and sent me an article about some very warm weather in Scotland, abnormally. So this is from the BBC, and this is from yesterday. Science Centre roof melts on hottest ever June day in Glasgow. Scotland's largest city has enjoyed its hottest June day in history. The temperature hit 31.9 C in Glasgow, which weather forecasters round up to 32 C. Okay. Thursday beat Wednesday's record as Scotland's hottest day in 23 years. Temperatures triggered speed restrictions on rail routes in central Scotland, and roads melted in Aberdeenshire, Moray, and Fife. The weatherproof membrane on Glasgow Science Centre's roof melted and dripped black goo down the building. Thursday has become Scotland's warmest day of 2018 so far. Forecasters thought the day's temperatures might get close to Scotland's record highest June temperature of 32.2 recorded in Ochtertyre in Perth and Kinross in 1893. While the heat did get close, the record still stands. The high temperatures caused problems across the country. Sharon Lyons from Glasgow Science Centre said that Scotland enjoys taps aff weather. Taps aff. The weatherproof membrane from our roof is quite literally melting. The structural integrity of the roof is completely sound, but we are left with a bit of an unsightly black goo on the roof. When we return to typical Glasgow colder climes, we shall set about cleaning it. Gritters were sent out after roads were reported to be melting in high temperatures. Poor conditions were encountered on the A920 between Huntley and Dufftown, and on the A916, Greg Rothy to Cupar Roads. Sorry, I'm destroying these pronunciations. On Wednesday, Avamore reached 31C, making it the hottest single day in 5 years before the record was surpassed 24 hours later. So yeah, I'm going to link this below. It just goes on and on talking about how hot it is. So that's about it. Again, heat records are being set in many, many places to contradict the grand solar minimum global cooling that people say that we are undergoing. We are not. Anyways, but I digress. Here's one from Vox. Let's see, from yesterday. Antarctica has lost 2.71 trillion tons of ice. Osama said this to me. Here's what that looks like. All the ice that melted at the South Pole in the past 25 years visualized with swimming pools. The frigid expanse of land at the Earth's southern pole is covered by 90% of the planet's ice. If all the ice in Antarctica's ice sheets were to melt, it would raise sea levels by 190 feet. Much of this ice is miles thick and still frozen solid, but a hotter atmosphere and a warmer ocean have caused some of it to melt at an increasingly faster rate. An international team of 80 researchers reported earlier this month that the rate of thaw in Antarctica has tripled over the past decade. The study, published in the journal Nature, showed that Antarctica lost a total of 2.71 trillion metric tons of ice between 1992 and 2017. Half of these losses came in the past 5 years. Half of these losses came in the past 5 years. The researchers came up with these numbers by using satellite measurements of ice sheet mass balance, a collaboration between the European Space Agency and NASA called Emit. The study is one of the most robust efforts ever to measure changes in Antarctica, and its findings are an unnerving example of the consequences of a warmer ocean. According to the research team, the rate of ice loss has accelerated to 219 gigatons per year between 2012 and 2017, a bit more than the peak flow rate of Niagara Falls. That's 219 billion metric tons. Understanding the rate of ice melt way down in Antarctica is incredibly important for global sea levels. Continuing on this trajectory means transforming every coastline and every seaside community on Earth. But how do you even wrap your mind around a number that large? Let's start small. A metric ton of ice has the mass of 1 cubic meter of water. Now let's use this water to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool. That requires 2,500 tons of water, or 660 US gallons. Every second, Antarctica is losing roughly triple this mass in ice. Triple an Olympic-sized swimming pool every second, which means that every 40 hours, Antarctica loses a gigaton, or 1 billion tons of ice every 2 days, or every less than 2 days. For the 25-year period between 1992 and 2017, Antarctica lost an average ice mass of 109 gigatons per year. That adds up to 2,710 gigatons of ice turned into water between 1992 and 2017. Get ready to scroll because they're showing you how many gigatons this is, which is just a lot of gigatons. This year, we've also seen a heat wave in the Arctic and the fastest decline in Arctic sea ice in 1,500 years. But it's important to note that the ice in Antarctica is different from this ice, with different consequences for the planet. Much of the ice in the Arctic is sea ice made of frozen ocean. Its extent changes with the seasons, and is only a few meters thick at most. It can alter atmospheric air currents, but it has a negligible impact on sea levels. Antarctica's ice, on the other hand, sits on top of a landmass. It is formed by precipitation over millions of years, and is upward of 3 miles thick in its thickest spots. Since it's not in the water, Antarctica ice raises global sea levels when it melts. Given the Brobdingnagian amount of ice it houses, I'm not even going to stop there. I'll look that up later. A melting Antarctica has the potential to submerge coastlines around the world. But there's still a lot of uncertainty, we're uncertain, about the extent to which and timing of how this will unfold. It's always viewed as a wild card in sea level rise forecasting, said Ted Scambos, a member of the Emit team and a senior research scientist at the National Snow and Ice Data Center. Some folks wonder if it will be sluggish. What's clear now is that the Arctic and Antarctic ice are, because it's accelerating, over the last 5 years quite a bit. But we wonder if it'll be sluggish. Thanks, Ted Scambos. What's clearer now is that Arctic and Antarctic ice are experiencing declines, and the rate of ice melt in Antarctica is speeding up. Researchers are preparing new satellite missions to measure the ice before it goes away. At the same time, storms are becoming more intense and more people are living in coastal areas. So property developers in Miami should keep a close eye on the South Pole, lest an inland condo building suddenly find itself on a beachfront. Yeah. If you live in Miami, just reiterating, you have to know that Miami is done much sooner than later. They already have king tides, ocean basically flooding the streets and flooding the aquifers. And if you can't see the writing on the wall, then take evasive action. I'm just letting you know. You should probably take evasive action. Let's keep going. This is from HuffPost. Yesterday. 2% of New York City's buildings emit half of its CO2 pollution. They're luxury towers. Yeah. Well, this is interesting. Properties owned by the families of President Donald Trump and Jared Kushner rank among the biggest contributors to the city's carbon footprint. The 90-floor tower, nicknamed the Oligarch's Erection, is the gaudy centerpiece of Manhattan's Billionaires Row, a place where a corrupt Nigerian oil tycoon set a $51 million record for the biggest foreclosure in the city's history in 2017. Wow. And a Silicon Valley tech mogul bought the most expensive home ever sold in New York for $100.5 million in 2018. But 157 West 57th Street is part of another equally exclusive club that includes Trump Tower, the Trump International Hotel and Tower, the Kushner family's 666 Fifth Avenue. Why? That's awesome. The address is 666. The ritzy Baccarat Hotel and residences, and 15 Central Park West, where Goldman Sachs CEO Lloyd Blankfein lives. That club is the biggest contributors to carbon dioxide pollution in New York, where just 2% of buildings produce nearly 50% of the city's climate-altering emissions, according to a report released by New York Communities for Change, the People's Climate Movement New York, the Working Families Party, and 2 other city-based environmental nonprofits. By comparing public data on the amount of electricity the buildings pulled from the grid with how much fossil fuel they burn on-site, the report's authors calculated each structure's energy use on a system based on 30-year average temperatures and measured in kilo British thermal units, or kBTU, a measurement widely used by architects. The median energy use intensity for office buildings in New York is 186 BTUs or kBTUs per square foot. For multifamily homes, it's 125 kBTU per square foot. For public schools, it's 112 kBTU per square foot. For 157 West 57th Street, that figure came out to 287. Trump Tower hit 208. The Trump International Hotel and Tower reached 267.666. 267. 666 Fifth Avenue had 285. Good Lord. 15 Central Park West notched 222. The Baccarat soared to 386. Holy shnikes. The coalition of local environmental groups who authored the report, shared exclusively with HuffPost, are calling on city lawmakers to mandate 80% cuts to emissions and energy use by 2050. This would require dramatic upgrades to the boilers, water heaters, roofs, and windows of existing skyscrapers. 70% of the city's CO2 emissions come from buildings, according to the city. It's the Trumps and the Kushners that are polluting the city, said Pete Sikora, the senior advisor at New York Communities for Change, the nonprofit that spearheaded the report. Yeah, but included with the Trumps and the Kushners are all the other rich people. Yeah, all the other rich people that are staying at these hotels and using these air miles and using all these luxuries. Yeah, we're not a factory town in New York City, but if we were, our smokestacks would be buildings like Trump Tower. Mayor Bill de Blasio has twice announced mandates to cut emissions from privately owned buildings, first in 2016, then again in 2017. The plans went nowhere. The city's powerful real estate lobby launched a fierce campaign to oppose the mandate in 2016, of course. Then de Blasio released a second, more detailed mandate last September without coordinating with his typical environmental allies on the city council, alienating legislators who had been drafting their own bills to require building emissions cuts. They now decline to back the mayor. How could you alienate us? In October, city councilman Constantinides, the Queen's lawmaker who leads the Committee on Environmental Protection, introduced his own more ambitious bill. But did he alienate legislatures? But both mandates amounted to half measures, the report argues. The mayor's plan would lead to only 7% cuts in the city's climate pollution. Constantinides' bill called Intro 1745-2017 only reduced emissions by 13%. Now, Sikora said environmentalists are hoping New York City Council Speaker Corey Johnson, who was elected in January, will push Constantinides to make his legislation ambitious enough to meet 80% by 2050 goal when the bill is reintroduced later this summer or early fall. Drastic climate action in New York City ripples far beyond the 5 boroughs. In January, de Blasio announced the city is suing 5 major oil companies over infrastructure damage from climate change. The mayor also plans to divest roughly $5 billion in fossil fuel investments from the city's 5 pension plans. The move marked a landmark victory for the divestment movement, given New York City's status as the financial and cultural giant with a gross domestic product big enough to rank among the world's top 20 economies. Other cities quickly followed, but the real estate lobby's money could prove to be an obstacle. The Real Estate Board of New York's Super Political Action Committee pledged to spend $10 million in 2013, injecting an unprecedented amount of corporate money into neighborhood races. The 10 biggest landlords and developers in New York together donated about $6.5 million to political campaigns between 2013 and 2014, according to a Commercial Observer analysis from 2015. In 2016, ProPublica identified $21 million in real estate donations to New York State candidates and party committees since 2000, a staggering demonstration of how industry players secured tax breaks and weakened rent laws. That sword of money is just hanging over every council member's head every time they think about issues like this, Sikora said. They have so much power, it's astonishing. Yep. The board said it was currently working with a diverse set of stakeholders to find a path forward to better measure and reduce energy consumption, and called environmentalists' criticism of its political participation ironic. Compared to other global cities, New York is among the cleanest and greenest with respect to sustainability, John H. Banks, president of REBNY, said in an emailed statement. This is due in part to the strides that have been made to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by buildings. Okie dokie. That's all I'm going to read for that. The last sentence is it's one tenth of a percent who are really responsible for the lion's share of carbon pollution emitted by New York City. Indeed. The rich are the worst offenders of resource use, of pollution, hands down. They lead the pack, and in first world countries are the worst offenders of resource use and pollution, hands down. They lead the pack, all day, every day. And so I realize that there's You know, when I talk about personal responsibility as far as like cutting down our own carbon footprint, obviously people with less money, even in the United States, have way lower of a carbon footprint than the rich do. And it's really the rich that are, you know, obviously destroying the earth on a much faster scale and pace. I wish somebody like Leonardo DiCaprio would talk about this, but I haven't heard him say anything about this yet. Because he himself is rich, wealthy, I'm sure uses all the resources that everybody else does. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he lives in a little bungalow in the middle of Los Angeles and rides his bike to work, but I really doubt it. I really, really doubt it. Last I checked, I think he has, you know, a bunch of yachts and cars and planes and stuff like that, and a whole island where people can go fly, a whole eco island where everybody can go fly and go on vacation. So Leonardo DiCaprio, sorry. Leonardo DiCaprio, sorry, man. I didn't mean to like mess up your name like that. But if you are really concerned about environmental destruction, start with you and your very rich friends and tell them to cut it out. Just stop it, okay? That's all you need to do. Sorry. Anyways, moving on. This is from today, from The Guardian. Another article by George Monbiot. Our natural world is disappearing before our eyes. We have to save it. The creatures we feared our grandchildren wouldn't see have vanished. It happened faster than even pessimists predicted. All you waffling scientists out there, all you, it might be sluggish scientists, it felt as disorienting as forgetting my PIN number. I stared at the caterpillar, unable to attach a name to it. I don't think my mental powers are fading. I still possess an eerie capacity to recall facts and figures and memorize long screeds of text. This is a specific loss. As a child and a young adult, I delighted in being able to identify almost any wild plant or animal, and now it has gone. The ability has shriveled from disuse. I can no longer identify them because I can no longer find them. Perhaps this forgetfulness is protective. I have been averting my eyes because I cannot bear to see what we have done to nature. I no longer see nature itself. Otherwise, the speed of loss would be unendurable. The collapse can be witnessed from one year to the next. The swift decline of the swift, down 25% in 5 years, is marked by the loss of the wild screams that until very recently filled the skies above my house. My ambition to see the seabird colonies of Shetland and St. Kilda has been replaced by the intention never to visit those islands during the breeding season. I cannot bear to see the empty cliffs where populations have crashed by some 90% in the past 2 decades. How about not visiting them at all? I have lived long enough to witness the vanishing of wild mammals, butterflies, mayflies, songbirds, and fish that I once feared my grandchildren would not experience. It has all happened faster than even the pessimists predicted. Walking in the countryside or snorkeling in the sea is now as painful to me as an art lover would find visits to a gallery if on every occasion another old master had been cut from its frame. The cause of this acceleration is no mystery. The United Nations reports that our use of natural resources has tripled in 40 years. That great expansion of mining, logging, meat production, and industrial fishing is cleansing the planet of its wild places and natural wonders. What economists proclaim as progress, ecologists recognize as ruin. We'll read that sentence again because that really sums it up. What economists proclaim as progress, ecologists recognize as ruin. This is what has driven the quadrupling of oceanic dead zones since 1950. The biological annihilation represented by the astonishing collapse of vertebrate populations, The rush to carve up the last intact forests, the vanishing of coral reefs, glaciers, and sea ice, the shrinkage of lakes, the drainage of wetlands, the living world is dying of consumption. We have a fatal weakness, a failure to perceive incremental change. As natural systems shift from one state to another, we almost immediately forget what we have lost. I have to make a determined effort to remember what I saw in my youth. Could it really be true that every patch of nettles at this time of year was reamed with caterpillar holes? That flycatchers were so common, I scarcely gave them a second glance? That the rivers around the autumn equinox were almost black with eels? Others seem oblivious. When I have criticized current practice, farmers have sent me images of verdant monocultures of perennial ryegrass with the message, "Look at this and try telling me we don't look after nature." It's green, but it's about as ecologically rich as an airport runway. One reader, Michael Groves, records the shift he has seen in the field beside his house, where the grass that used to be cut for hay is now cut for silage. Watching the cutters being driven at great speed across the field, he realized that any remaining wildlife would be shredded. Soon afterwards, he saw a roe deer standing in the mown grass. She stayed throughout the day and the following night. When he went to investigate, he found her fawn, its legs amputated. I felt sickened, angry, and powerless. How long had it taken to die? That grass-fed meat that the magazines and restaurants fetishize, this is the reality. When our memories are wiped as clean as the land, we fail to demand its restoration. Our forgetting is a gift to industrial lobby groups and the governments that serve them. Over the past few months, I have been told repeatedly that the Environment Secretary Michael Gove gets it. I have said so myself. He genuinely seems to understand what the problems are and what needs to be done. Unfortunately, he doesn't do it. Gove cannot be blamed for all of the fiascos to which he has put his name. The 25-year plan for nature was, it seems, gutted by the Prime Minister's office. The environmental watchdog he proposed was defanged by the Treasury. It has subsequently been lent some dentures by Parliament. Other failures are all his own work. In response to lobbying from sheep farmers, Gove has allowed ravens, a highly intelligent and long-lived species, just beginning to recover from centuries of persecution, to be killed once more in order to protect lands. There are 23 million sheep in this country and 7,400 pairs of ravens. Why must all other species give way to the white plague? Responding to complaints that most of our national parks are wildlife deserts, Gove set up a commission to review them, but governments choose their conclusions in advance through the appointments they make. A more dismal, backward-looking, and uninspiring panel would be hard to find. Not one of its members, as far as I can tell, has expressed a desire for significant change in our national parks, and most of them, if their past statements are anything to go by, are determined to keep them in their sheep-wrecked and grouse-trashed state. Now the lobbyists demand a New Zealand settlement for farming after Brexit, deregulated, upscaled, hostile to both wildlife and the human eye. If they get their way, no landscape, however treasured, will be safe from broiler sheds and mega dairy units, no river protected from runoff and pollution, no songbird saved from local extinction. The merger between Bayer and Monsanto brings together the manufacture of the world's most lethal pesticides and the manufacture of the world's most lethal herbicides. Already, the concentrated power of both of these behemoths is a hazard to democracy. Together, they threaten both political and ecological disaster. Labor's environment team has scarcely a word to say about any of it. Similarly, the big conservation groups have gone missing in inaction. We forget even our own histories. We fail to recall, for example, that the 1945 Dower Report envisaged wilder national parks than we now possess, and that the conservation white paper the government issued in 1947 called for the kind of large-scale protection that is considered edgy and innovative today. Remembering is a radical act. That caterpillar, by the way, was a six-spot burnet, the larva of a stunning iridescent black and pink moth that once populated my neighborhood. I will not allow myself to forget again. I will work to recover the knowledge I have lost, for I now see that within the power of memory, We cannot hope to defend the world we love without the power of memory. We cannot hope to defend the world we love. Hope you all enjoyed that article. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so with the links below. Until next time, peace.